What's up, folks? This is Living the Lines, a five-fold media production. I'm Alan Wayne, and today we're here with Nashville songwriter and musician Jay Davenport. His new album, 2025 in Roman numerals, is coming out on March the 20th.
That's right. March 20th.
What's up, man? We've never actually met, so it's good to get you here at Five-Fold Media Studios. We've been kind of kicking around getting together for 6 months or so, and it's just never really lined up. But you got an album coming out, and we're up here promoting it today. Can you just kind of give us a little idea of where you're from and how you got into music?
Yeah, sure. But yeah, like you said, you mentioned we hadn't met yet. We've been kicking around on the social media for a while.
Yeah, I became aware of you because I seen you on all the musician finder groups online. Jay is dropping his name in the hat to be anybody and everybody's bass player.
Yeah, I was doing that the past year and a half or so. Just trying to get out there more, play more gigs, get more experience and more reps and things like that. Because I did go a few years there away from music, I guess, and then I came back to it,
Right.
So, but anyway, yeah, I've got a lot of friends on social media, especially in the music business that we haven't met in real life. So
it's a weird
so that was one of you.
You feel like you know people to a certain degree that you've never met in your whole life.
But yeah, so it's cool to finally meet you.
Where are you from originally?
Well, Middle Tennessee.
Okay, born and bred.
Yeah. So like my dad's side of the family is Nashville, and my mom's side was Murfreesboro.
Okay.
So I was born on Church Street, at a hospital on Church Street, like 3 blocks over from Music Row.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm proud to be from Nashville.
It seems like everybody from here is from somewhere else originally.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So it's cool to meet people that actually know the dynamic of what Middle Tennessee has been for a long time.
Right.
Because it's so different now than what it has, or what it is now from what it was.
Right.
15 years ago.
Which I don't at all knock the people who move here. Some Nashville locals do. I've got some in my family who are, like mad about Nashville growing or whatever, but that's not me. Because I say if I wasn't from Nashville, I'd move here too.
Right. Yeah.
So I love seeing the growth. But yeah, so grew up in Nashville, and then when I was 19, I joined the military, and I did that for 10 years, and then.
Now, was you playing music any up to that point?
Yeah. So I started playing music, I think, when I was 10.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was a kid. So big music background in my family.
And bass is your primary instrument.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's what you've started out at, and that's what you've always played.
Yeah, but when I was like 16, I started playing bass when I was like 10. But when I was like 16, I started playing guitar a little more, started learning it more.
Right.
And at the time, basically the only reason was to so I could be like a front man or whatever.
Right.
Which is funny because now the plan is for me to be the front man with the bass.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept that you don't see a ton.
Right, there's not a whole lot of it.
Well, I guess McCartney.
Yeah, there's definitely
Is he a hero of yours?
Yeah. I would say, let's see, when it comes to...
I don't know too many other bass
Yeah, when it comes to bass front man, for me, the number one is probably Bootsy Collins.
Okay.
You know who that is?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the whole way he did it, where he basically made his bass a lead instrument, was kind of cool. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to do that, but it was cool.
Well, I noticed in the song that you sent me to check out, that kind of is the dynamic, though.
Yeah, well, and it's funny that you caught on to that. I guess it's because you're like a songwriter, but that was the first song, and you're talking about the song, it's called What I Know.
Right.
And that song's cool because it's really like a culmination of the music that I've been working on over the past 3 years. We started recording music for this album in February of 22, so exactly 3 years. And it's changed so much during that time, and that song that I sent you, that was the most recent one that I've written and recorded. Well, I take that back. I started writing it 3 years ago. I finished it just recently.
So that's the one that's been mastered and finished the most, the freshest one you have?
Yeah, the freshest one. And I don't know if it's the best one, but right now it's my favorite, I guess.
Well, I've always heard with songwriters, you know, you ask a songwriter what their favorite song they've got, it's usually the one they're the most recent.
Yeah, that's a good point. But back to writing that song, that's the first song that I actually sat down and wrote with my bass in my hand.
Okay.
And I had a rough draft of the lyrics, and then my buddy, he helped me finish it up, the lyrics, and then I sat down and wrote that little riff at the beginning there on the bass, and I think that it made the song pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a funky thing, man.
So I'm definitely going to be doing that more often. But like I said, that was the first time I ever wrote a song with my bass in my hand, and I think it turned out pretty good.
Yeah, man.
So,
tell me about like the process of you making this record. Like, it's been going on for a long time, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Are these songs that you were writing in that 3-year period, or did you kind of start out with a bag of songs and then it's just transformed into what it's become now?
Yeah, it actually started out kind of an interesting way. I have a friend. He produced 9 of the 10 songs on the album. His
so it's a 10-track.
Yes, 10 tracks. Matt Butler is his name. We grew up together. I've known him since I was like, I don't even know, 7 or something.
Okay.
And he just happened to grow up to be a producer.
Right.
And so
I checked a little bit of his stuff out on Instagram. Yeah. He's got his thing's
BMG Loft Studios is the name of his Instagram. But his dad was in radio, and then he's been a musician since he was a kid also, and he's also a bass player. And we just grew up together, and one day we were hanging out. This was, I guess, 3 years ago. We were hanging out, and I'm like, hey man, you know, what's it cost to make an album these days, independent, you know? And he told me, and you know, it's a lot of money, but it was actually less money than I thought it would be.
Right.
So I was like, wow, you know, I might actually could do that, you know? And so we started, you know, floating around some ideas. And at that time, I really didn't have many songs that I would consider worth cutting. And so we cut a handful of songs that he kind of gathered from some other songwriter friends of his, and one songwriter friend of mine down in Texas, one of his songs, and then there was a couple covers, you know, because huge Waylon fan, so I recorded actually two Waylon songs.
I love covers.
Yeah.
Covers get a bad rap. I love covers.
Well, see, I'm all for covers as long as you kind of like make it your own somehow, you know.
Do something with it.
Yeah, right. And I think we did that. But so that's kind of how the whole thing got started. And then over that 3-year time period, I wrote a bunch of songs, and it was like, well, this song's got to be on the album. So we would go in and cut that one song to add it to the list. We ended up cutting, I think, 19 songs total, and there's going to be 10 on the album.
Down.
Yeah.
So you went to the military, and like your musical experience up to that point, were you just kind of playing with family and just hanging out and playing with friends and stuff, or was you doing any real gigging or songwriting at that time?
Yeah, well, it's funny, just like you mentioned before, even when I was a kid, I'd play with anybody who would let me. So when I was a kid, I played in school, of course. I played in church. I played in the Murfreesboro Youth Orchestra. I played anywhere.
Have you ever played at the Borough?
No, I haven't.
Okay, that's one of the places in Murfreesboro I played over there. It's been there for a long time.
Oh,
it's
gotcha.
like an old rock club across from the college.
So, and then on top of that, yeah, my family played too. Like, my dad plays, and my brother, 2 uncles, you know, everybody plays in my family.
Yeah.
So we, you know, anytime we get a chance to get together.
What
and
was
play.
the music that was kind of surrounding you in some of those times?
As a kid?
Yeah.
All right, so...
Like just what you come up in.
Well, I guess my parents...
You said Waylon. I'm sure you got that from your dad and your grandpa.
Yeah, my parents, my mom, big Southern gospel fan. My dad, big Elvis fan.
Okay.
Also, you know, all types of country, and then bluegrass. My dad and my grandfather and my uncle, they had a bluegrass band when they were younger, and so big on bluegrass. So my dad plays mandolin and guitar. My uncle plays banjo. So when I was 10, it was kind of like I don't think they ever said it, but they were kind of like, we need a bass player.
We need a bass player.
Or fiddle.
Right.
And I'm kind of a bigger guy, so I guess that's why I chose the bass.
Do you play stand-up bass?
Yeah, well, ever since I was 10, actually, you know, when I played in that orchestra, you know, right. I played what they call the stringed bass.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I play upright as well. And so as a kid, that's the kind of music I grew up around, or my family was listening to or whatever.
Right.
But as a bass player, you kind of look at what other genres of music have cool bass lines. Mm-hmm. And that's what led me to funk. Yes. That's what it was. I mean, any good bass player likes funk because it's got some cool bass lines, you know?
That is kind of the driving instrument with that style of music.
The rhythm section is funk, I guess you would say.
James Brown's my favorite.
Okay, yeah.
Just his power, man, what he can do with his voice and stuff. Like, I don't know a ton about that style of music, and just knowing James's story coming from absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
You know, that's what's inspiring to me.
And he was interesting when it comes to looking at making albums. He would basically be the producer for every song.
Distributor.
I mean,
and everything.
Yeah, he wanted the song exactly how it sounded in his head, and he wouldn't take anything from any recommendations, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So when did you get out of the Army?
In 2022. Okay. So
that's when all this kind of started. I was expecting that.
Yeah. So my last day in the Army was like January 28th or something, and then we were in the studio like February 2nd, I think it was.
And you're kicking around the idea of putting an album together.
Yeah,
and you were just trying to find some songs.
Yeah, that's right. And not even really with the intentions of doing it full time. At the time,
just want to create.
Yeah, exactly. I got a family and got to have a steady paycheck, I guess.
Right.
If I was 20 again, I could probably jump into doing it full time, but I got a day job, so.
I hear people say that if you meet someone that's been in music for any length of time, someone else is supporting them.
Yeah,
if they don't have a day job, somebody else is supporting. It's a hard thing.
Yeah.
So kind of, what are your plans for this album? Do you have plans for promotion, or are you going to try to get out on the road with it and take it to the people, or is it more of just something for you to have for you and your family?
Yeah, so the plan is, I guess the ultimate goal is, I would love to just play music full time.
Right.
And I'm not saying that, I don't need to be famous or rich.
Yep.
I would just love to get paid every day to make music, and so that's the ultimate goal. And in the meantime, though, I'm gonna keep working my day job and just pretty much staying local.
Right.
Try to play as many local shows as I can, maybe a couple like regional weekend runs here and there. We'll see, but maybe next year, I could do a small tour,
right.
Something like that. But
I find in my own experience, like it's much harder to find opportunities to play original music.
Yeah.
They're very limited and they hardly ever pay anything.
That's true.
You can sustain doing like what you were doing, just taking up pickup gigs, and I mean, there's a lot of opportunities, especially in this town. There's a lot of opportunities in other places too, with like the casinos and stuff, but a lot of that is cover music.
Right.
when you're dealing with original music, you have to get real creative on how you're going to promote this thing and how you're going to sell it and how you're going to get it out there to people. That's kind of one of the things we like to do here is just give people a platform to tell their story and stuff on.
Yeah, and it's y'all think y'all are doing a great thing.
So what was kind of some of the challenges that you run into just kind of diving head first into making a record?
Yeah, the biggest challenge was not really knowing exactly what I wanted the end product to be.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I've now figured it out.
Yeah.
And so I think hopefully I'll make a second album to put out next year, and that one will be it'll be exactly what I want it to be, and it won't take so long to get it that way.
I find I have a hard time figuring out exactly what I do want. I'm usually pleasantly surprised with the end product, but I kind of go into it, and that's why you surround yourself with a good producer and people you trust, so they can help guide you, and maybe you don't know what you want. They can give you things that they know you're going to enjoy.
That's right.
Because nobody can really truly do this all on their own.
That's right. Yeah, producer's a big part of it.
Yeah, it takes a village, man, and even just you can bite off more than you can chew. Were you mainly just playing bass on this, and then you delegated the other tracks to other musicians, or were you covering a lot of ground?
So actually, I only played bass on the one song, that one that I sent you.
Okay.
And really the only reason I did that one was because I wrote the bass line, so I wanted to be the one playing it. But the other 9 songs on the album, my buddy Matt Butler played them because he's a 10 times better bass player than me. So
I'm in the same position you are. I just kind of got done making my first attempt at making a record, and you learn so much, but you get humbled so much.
Yeah.
You get put into a perspective of like, okay, well, I'm a bar lead guitar player. I don't have any business playing lead guitar on any of these songs, because it becomes to where it's not about you anymore. It's about the song. And it's about the other musicians that are on the track. You got to do them justice too, you know. If somebody comes in there and lays down a sick drum beat, you got to make sure that you're up to par with that.
And it's also
let
about
someone that can do it, not let your ego get in the way, you know.
And it's also about getting in the studio and getting out, because it's expensive.
Exactly. So what, was all this done at the same studio? Or there was 2 different places, right?
More than that. Yeah, it was actually I'd have to sit down and think about it, how many studios. It was at least 4.
Okay.
Because like I said, because I kept like writing a new song, and then I'd be like, oh, that song has to be on the album. And so we'd cut it wherever we could. So between the 2 guys who produced it, Matt Butler and Paul Bowen, we would just record wherever they had a slot at a studio that time.
Where are some of the places?
So we did a lot of them at Treasure Isle in Berry Hill.
Okay.
It's like right behind Blackbird, if you know where that's at. And then we did, we did one at Starstruck. Is that the one? Reba and her husband started back in the day, I think. Starstruck, I believe. And then we did one in a home studio. And then we might have done one at Hilltop. You ever been there?
I don't think I've been to that one.
Yeah, and I guess it's Goodlettsville.
It's been there for a while, though.
Yeah.
Is that the one that Ricky Skaggs is involved with?
No, not that I'm aware of.
No. Yeah, I think he's involved with one somewhere.
I can't remember the guy's name who started that.
So you were just booking studio time and using those studios pickers?
Well, so both of my guys, my buddies, they do a lot of work with like songwriters who maybe they just want to do like a quick demo or something.
Right.
So what they'll do is they'll book a whole day and a day of musicians, and then they'll sell single slots or whatever.
Hour slots.
Yeah.
To come in.
And so I did a couple of those.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the Nashville standard for a lot of people.
Yeah, seems like. Yeah, and I mean, it's efficient, you know. You can just show up, and, you know, the producer, he you know, send him the stuff the day or two before. And then, but yeah, you show up, and then the musicians, that's the first time they're hearing about the project.
It's incredible.
And they can knock it out like that. I mean, they're something else.
it's a whole other level than what I'll ever be. But I appreciate those guys more than anything, man.
Yeah.
Because what they can do, they just know their instrument. Mm-hmm. You know, and there's like musicians, and then there's real musicians.
Yeah, studio musicians.
And there's nothing wrong with being either one. Those guys aren't going to go out on the road.
Yeah.
You know, they're not going to sleep in hotel floors and grind it out. You know, they're going to come and play their parts and go home at night.
Right.
And that's, you know, for each their own. It takes all different kinds, you know, in this business. But I was going to ask you, what is a funky armadillo?
So here's that. Here's how that came
When
about.
I looked at your album, I was thinking, I was like, the people that I grew up around in Eastern Kentucky, they would see this because it's titled 2025, but it's in Roman numerals. So it's just a bunch of M's and X's, and then it says something about funky armadillos. Yeah. My people would want to put a parental advisory sticker on there somewhere. They're just going to know there's something bad on there.
Yeah, that's funny. So the funky armadillo thing, it just came about when I was thinking about a name for the band, actually.
Okay, so that's not the record label?
No, it is.
It is.
That came after. But everybody needs a good name for your backing band, you know?
Absolutely.
Like,
what was Bootsy Collins? Super Freak? I can't remember.
Bootsy Collins Band?
Yeah. I can't remember.
The rubber bands, wasn't it?
I don't know. I knew it had to be something.
It's something like that. Well, you know, he started in James Brown Band. You know that?
I don't know a ton about the history of
They were called the JBs.
Right.
Yeah. And then he was in Parliament for a while. And then when he went out to do his own thing, I'm pretty sure it was called Bootsy Collins and the Rubber Bands or something like that. But anyway, everybody's got a good name for their backing band. So when I was thinking about it, I knew I wanted it to be the funky something.
Right.
And then how the Armadillo came about was, are you familiar with the Armadillo World Headquarters from Austin, Texas?
I don't think so.
Okay. So they called it the Armadillo World Headquarters, but it was just a club or like a music hall in Austin, and it opened in 1970. And that's where a lot of my favorite artists played back in the 70s. Waylon and Willie. Well, you could say Waylon kind of started the outlaw country sound there. He left Nashville in 1971 and went down there and met a few guys like Billy Joe Shaver.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, a great songwriter. And together they all kind of created the outlaw country sound. And the 70s as a whole is my favorite time period of music from country.
It was something very magical.
Yeah,
the
something
sound,
going on.
The recording equipment, it was primitive, but those guys were good too.
Yeah. So basically, the Armadillo just came to just, pay homage to the Armadillo World Headquarters.
Right.
So then after I named the band, I'm like, well, that'd be a good name for the record label too. So that's how that came out. So when you see us live, we're gonna be Jay Davenport and the Funky Armadillos.
Right.
Yep.
I love it, man. If you had to make a go of this anywhere else other than Nashville, would you go to Austin?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Really?
That would be the only other place, I guess. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of.
Do you ever think that maybe you would be a better fit? You ever think about?
I don't think about it because I love home too much. I love Nashville too much. It's definitely somewhere where I would go and spend a lot of time there.
Do you find that Nashville, to a certain extent, is kind of stifling for certain people's creativity?
Well, stifling for creativity, I would say no.
There's a certain
for the most part.
expectation of what's coming out of here, and I feel like, okay, we'll go back. Like I haven't done a ton of co-writing. I mostly write alone. Mm-hmm. Have you done any extent of going and meeting with just people you're not too familiar with and trying to write?
Yeah,
because I feel like,
and I don't mind it.
I feel like a lot of those people would expect something way different than maybe what I would be able to give them.
Mm-hmm. Well, those types of people are not the type of people you want to write with. Then
I understand.
There's plenty of people like us in Nashville who who want to write good music and are not worried about, checking any boxes or anything.
Right. There are a lot of good songwriters in this town, though, that can just go with any flow.
That's true.
Whoever, whatever ideas, whatever type of music you want to do, and that's what I like. A good, well-rounded songwriter can make a living in this town just popping in with anybody.
Yeah. So, my friend, I guess you would say he's my songwriting mentor. His name is Aaron Ratier. And
I wanted to ask you about Aaron.
Yeah. So he is a good example of like what you talk about. He can write anything.
How well do you know him?
Well,
because he seems to me, to my experience, he seems to be the most interesting songwriter in Nashville right now.
You think so? That's a big statement, so that's kind of cool. A short story about how we met is actually kind of funny. He just hired me to do some work on his property.
Okay.
And then we became buddies. And then I was like, when I met him, he told me that he was a musician or whatever, and I didn't think much of it because so is everybody else.
Yeah.
Turns out he's an outstanding songwriter. So when I found out how good of a songwriter he was, and we're buddies, I basically talked him into giving me some lessons, some songwriting advice and things like that. And then he basically made me prove to him that I could actually write, by myself or whatever.
Right.
Prove to him that I was, worth the time, I guess.
Yeah.
And he finally started teaching me some things, and then we've done a few writes together, and we come up with a few good songs, and yeah, I'm glad to know him.
Is this all stuff you're keeping for trade secrets, or is anything you would want to share with anybody else?
Well, all right, this is going to sound cheesy, but the way that I wrote that song, What I Know, when he finally was like, all right, I'll give you some lessons. He said, here's your first lesson. And this is exactly how it happened. We're standing in a field, I'm doing work on his property for him. And he's like, here's your first lesson about songwriting. Only write about what you know. And I was like, wow, okay, that seems, simple.
Right.
So a few months after that, I was bored one day and sitting around, and I thought, write about what you know. And I started writing that song almost as an exercise, like a songwriting exercise.
I have some of those.
And I sent it to him. I'm like, as a joke, I was like, hey man, you told me to write about what I know, so here's a song. And he sent back, he's like, man, that's actually kind of cool.
Right.
So he helped me finish the song, and that's what it turned out to be. But yeah, so
he's having huge success right now.
Yeah, super glad for him. Yeah,
he is a co-writer, for people who don't know, on "You Look Like You Love Me."
Yeah,
Aaron Ratier. He's had Grammys. He had some songs on "A Star Is Born." Real interesting dude.
And that versatility, like you were talking about. He won a Grammy for a Lady Gaga song.
Yeah. He said he was in LA and he was just popping in random people's writing rooms, like, anybody need lyrics? I got you.
I don't know if that was probably a joke because he's a funny guy. He was probably supposed to be there. Yeah. But he also he wrote a couple songs with Lainey Wilson. He wrote 4x4 by You.
Right.
Him and John Decius. He's another good songwriter.
What are some other projects you've been involved in?
Well,
besides playing with anybody in Nashville that can throw a band together.
Yeah. So my main gig playing bass was with a rockabilly band. Well, rockabilly, western swing.
The Tennessee Roundups?
The Tennessee Roundups, yeah. That's what we called ourselves. Oh, they're still going strong. I just told them here recently that I was going to back out, play less shows to focus more on my own music. But yeah, I played upright in that band for about a year. We played a lot of shows around town and stuff, and the band's doing pretty good. But my buddy Matt McMurray, who he's the lead singer, he was also in the military. He's from Texas, and when he got out of the military, he came to Nashville.
Right.
And he's doing his thing, but he loves all that old music, like the rockabilly and like Bob Wills tunes and Ernest Tubb and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's what he likes, and that's what he's doing. So
those are fun gigs to play, though.
Oh, super fun. Yeah, we'd play a lot of stuff like at the American Legion and stuff, where a lot of people dance. You ever been there to the American Legion Post 82?
Not that particular one, I don't think.
Yeah,
we've played some of those VFWs before, and they treat you very well.
A lot of dancers show up to them things, man.
Yeah?
Yeah. You'll see people out there. Well, the American Legion, they do dance lessons too.
Okay.
So
Boogie, Scoot and Boogie.
Yeah. So a lot of dance. They got a nice dance floor.
How much time have you spent on the road, or have you spent mostly doing a lot of stuff just locally around town?
Yeah, just local stuff.
Yeah.
So the only road experience I have is as a driver. Yeah, I did some work
we had
for a couple
lined
different
up
bands
together, and then you had some other stuff come up, and you were driving. Were you driving somebody's Cybertruck or something?
Oh, that was I was working for Jordan Davis's.
Or something?
Yeah. I was working for Jordan Davis's tour. That's right. I forgot about that. But so I am a professional driver. I drive a truck. That's my day job.
Right.
Drive a truck around Nashville delivering and picking up construction equipment. But I also, I'm licensed to drive a tour bus. I can drive anything on wheels, really.
Right.
And so I've done some tours with some bands as the driver. And
that seems like that would be a blast.
yeah, it was awesome. The longest one, I mean, I hadn't done any super long ones, but the longest one I've done was like 26 days and like 11,000 miles.
Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I'm a road dog, man. That's half the reason why I got into this is just to travel.
Yeah, it was fun. It's a good time just being out there, just being involved in the music industry in any way is fun. You know, I'm sure y'all are figuring that out. You know, that's one reason why you're doing what you're doing.
Right. What is a time, like, I know with me being a creative person, sometimes having to create or having this drive to be in this music stuff and do what we do, like, it can kind of be a burden. Has there ever been times when you just kind of wish you could just lay all this down?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it becomes a lot sometimes. You know, it's a lot of hours. You know,
It becomes overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then you compare yourself to everybody else, and you're like, well, I got to find a lane. You know, I'm not this, I'm not that. You know, you try to find your own uniqueness.
Yeah, that's hard. And then on the other hand, sometimes, at least in my head, I don't know about you, but in my head, I'm thinking, well, if I'm too unique, then nobody's gonna like me, you know? And
It's hard to be a good judge.
And at the end of the day, I'm not really bothered if people don't like me or my music, because I'm making it because I feel like it needs to be made. Yeah. I need to get it out there. You know,
there's such a misconception when it comes to like social media and self-promotion. They're like, oh, this person thinks they're this or that. It kind of becomes not about you, but somebody has to do it. You know, somebody has to promote. And it's more about just the art, and like, you just want to create, and these songs need a place to live.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about, look at me, I made this or that. It's like, these are songs that didn't exist, and me and these people made them, and now they do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I really think it's like art, like any kind of other art. Like if I was to,
it can be a
to
burden
draw a painting or whatever.
On the folks around you too, if they're not understanding of what's going on. Like, is your family, well, your parents and stuff seem to be musical folks, so you're a married man.
Yep.
Your wife, you have kids.
Yeah, I got one kid and one on the way.
Do they understand that? Obviously, you have young kids, they don't. But your wife, is she understanding of the music stuff?
Yeah, she's super supportive. I mean, she loves music too. And she's super supportive. Definitely my biggest fan.
Yeah,
for sure.
It makes all the difference in the world, man. What's like a good Nashville story? Like
a good Nashville story
that sums up what Nashville is. Like, maybe you ran into Bill Monroe at the Waffle House or something.
Well, there's a lot of stories like that.
Just one thing you could think of, like. Because crazy things happen in this town. You run into random, you just look over and you're next to so-and-so, or you're in a limo with whoever, and you're like, I should not be here. Like, this is way above my pay grade. You ever had a moment where you're like, this is really cool, but...
There's been so many. I mean, so just the other day, you probably saw, like I was on the road around Music Row,
right,
in the morning time, and there's Keith Urban at a red light over there, driving like a $1 million car, an old car, and
bump him a little bit.
Yeah, so stuff like that happens, and then just like last year, one time, I went over to Studio Instrument Rentals.
Yeah,
I went over there to pick up a clavinet, and as I'm walking in, Riley Green is in there practicing. They have like a rehearsal space in there.
Right.
So he's in there practicing. Yeah, there's really countless stories like that. I mean, when you're in Nashville, that's the kind of, it really does happen. Like, be in the airport and see anybody,
What's like one of the, like a hell gig, like one of the worst gigs you've showed up to? Because I'm sure you've had some bummers,
Oh yeah,
man.
Yeah.
Those are hard to recover.
Probably the first one that comes to mind. We played at a little bar in East Nashville, and it was a weeknight, so not a whole lot of people come out anyway. Yeah. But there wasn't a whole lot of people in the room, but there was this one pretty big group of guys, and you could tell they were all together. They were all wearing like business casual, and it's like 10 o'clock at night on a weeknight or something, so we're like, that's kind of weird. Well, we chatted with them a little bit, and they said that they were from out of town, and they were in Nashville for like a business trip or something. And they said that someone had recommended that they come to that bar to hear music.
Right.
Okay, so we start playing. We played about 2 songs. They hit the door. They didn't want to. They came from Morgan Wallen music. Right. You know what I mean? And we were playing at Ernest Tubb or something, Bob Wills or something. Yeah. So that was pretty funny. But when they left, the room was almost empty. That's there was a lot of them.
So there's so many of those, man, and I've always said that's what separates the people who want this and the people that don't want it bad enough.
Yeah.
Because they suck. Coming home from those gigs and you've spent more money than you made, and it's just like, what am I doing with my life? You have those moments. At least I'm sure I do.
Oh yeah.
Who are you listening to that's kind of current? Do you listen to current music? Is there anybody putting stuff out? Turn us on to somebody that's...
I'll turn you on. You may already have heard of him, but yeah, what have I been listening to recently? A guy named Sam Morrow. You ever heard of him?
I'm not familiar.
Oh, you got to check him out.
Yeah.
So he's been putting out music since I think 2018, I believe. He put out his first album. But I just found out about him not too long ago, and
there's so many people. I find it very hard to stay in the clip.
Yeah, because there's so many people out there. But this guy, he lives in Nashville now. I can't remember where he's from. I think maybe Texas. Anyway, but he does that kind of like country funk type of thing that I love. Very 70s sounding, with the clavinet and everything. Clavinet's one of my favorite instruments. Probably second behind the bass, of course, and then steel guitar. But I think there's something so cool about a clavinet in a country song. I love it. He's got a few songs like that. But yeah, Sam Morrow, you should check him out.
Okay. What is your bass rig? Do you have like a rig that you've been running for a long time?
Yeah, my main bass is a jazz bass. That's what I prefer. Fender jazz bass, and right now
Sunburst, or you got it
that Sunburst one that you saw. That's my main bass right now, and that's the bass. I've had that instrument longer than any other instrument I've ever had. I've had it for 20 years this year.
Okay, that's the one on your album cover.
That's right, and that's my favorite bass. Probably just because I've had it so long and it feels right. But the reason I started with a Fender was actually just because most of my favorite bass players played Fenders,
Right.
There was if you were an Elvis fan, did you ever watch Aloha from Hawaii, the live recording?
I've seen bits and pieces.
You probably have. Okay. Well, in that when Elvis is introducing his band, he says everybody's name and what they play, but the bass player was the only one that he said what instrument he was playing. He says
what style.
He says on the Fender bass, Jerry Sheff.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was so cool, even when I was a kid, because obviously that happened in like 1973 before I was born. But yeah, so that's why I started playing a Fender, is because Jerry Sheff played a Fender. I love Fender.
Yeah, maybe they'll sponsor you.
Well, that'd be nice.
Do you you run a bass amp, or are you more of like a DI type guy?
I think I'm moving to a DI.
So
we're about to, yeah, because I kept
hard
showing
to
up.
argue with them.
I kept showing up to gigs, and they're like, "Oh, just plug into the house."
It's hard to argue with
we don't. And most house, you know, you can just plug straight in or whatever. But I'm looking at a few different DI boxes right now. Got to decide which one to go with. But I think it's probably the way to go. I mean, you really just don't even need the big amp anymore. And, you know, my back's not in great shape either, so I'm not trying to tote it around.
It's hard to deny when you can throw it in your backpack and roll up. Because when you're like a gigging musician and you're bouncing all over town, you know, it's just, and it's like, I've heard people describe it that it's nothing that you're going to notice once the drummer kicks in.
Yeah.
You know. And it's becoming the future. Like these kids nowadays, they're not running tube amps and taking the time to maintenance those things and making sure they sound good and in working order and stuff.
Right.
They want those, you know, and plug it right into an interface and move on.
But yeah, so I'm looking at a couple different DIs, and I run a couple pedals. I'm working on expanding a board right now.
Right.
But like I gotta, I of course have a wah pedal. You know, gotta have that. And then I've got like an envelope filter, if you know what that is. Super common for like funk bass, stuff like that. And then, you know, compressor and you know all that good stuff that everybody has. Yeah. Fuzz, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I run some pedals more than the average country bass player, I guess.
Mm-hmm. You just like the dynamics and just gives you something to play
Yeah,
with.
something to switch it up with. But for years and years, I ran no pedals, you know, just
straight in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you watch the Grammys?
I watched some. Yeah, I watched some of it. What'd you think about
Do
it?
you not find it just comical at this point?
Well,
like, I mean, I think
money.
I didn't actually watch it. I just kind of get the highlights
Yeah.
and stuff. And Beyonce won Best Country Album. And when you see her win something like that over people like Morgan Wallen or even like Zach Top, who's had a better year than Zach Top?
Yeah, he's had a great year. Yeah.
It takes all the meaning and like there's no merit in it anymore. It's like if you won a Grammy as a songwriter or something, that's great. You have something to show your family, this, that, and the other. But winning one as an artist, it don't really mean much. It just means how much money you had pushed behind you.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something that makes me mad, that grinds my gears. So the Grammy for Country Album of the Year is not one that they televise every year. Did you know that? So what they do is they rotate which ones that are going to be televised that year. And one of my favorite artists of all time is Sturgill Simpson. And when he won the Grammy for Best Country Album of the Year, that was a year that it was not televised.
Right.
So I do
They
find
do that with the bluegrass too.
Yeah. So I do find it suspicious that the year that Beyonce won, it was televised. Of course, you know.
What I read was that Elon Musk exposed that Jay-Z paid $20 million to radio shows, $40 million to country stations, $110 million for downloads, so Beyonce could win, in quotation, the Best Country Album category.
Yeah, I saw that too, and that's what I was going to say earlier was you know, money talks, you know. So if you can't compete with money, then you just
when
got.
When it comes to someone like with an independent artist like yourself, do you even remotely entertain the idea of signing a record deal?
Yeah, I would entertain that. It would have to be the right kind of deal, because I know a lot of deals that went south.
Right.
You know, and I know that it's relatively easy. I won't say easy, but it's getting more common for independent artists to be able to make a really good living without the support of a record label.
Right.
So the record labels definitely need to realize that they're becoming less important than they once were.
You can do a lot of stuff independent, but the way I understand it is you will always reach a certain level of a cap.
Yeah.
You know, because
maybe,
even people that preach independence, they get to a certain level and you're like, I can't take this any further. unless I sign with people that
Yeah,
have
to go to
connections.
radio. Yeah, which not everybody understands how all that works, but I will say that's one major reason why Jelly Roll blew up. You know, Jelly Roll had been making music for decades. Well, at least a decade before he signed a record deal. But then after he signed the record deal, his career took off, and the main reason is because they sent his music to radio. They're promoting him, but you've got to have a good product, obviously. Yeah. So he already had the good product.
He also done a complete 360 in what he was putting out too.
Well, yeah, that was from the advice of some friends of his, I guess. Yeah. That's what it sounded like. That's what I heard.
It becomes money over art.
Yeah, maybe.
Which there's nothing wrong with either one. It's a path that every person has to choose. And it's hard not to take the bag, man.
Yeah.
It's a tough world out there.
Well, me personally, I liked Jelly Roll's art better post-record deal than pre.
Right. But I just wonder, like we were talking about with money, I feel like with him, it's somebody with a bag was like, let's get Ernest, let's get Hardy, let's get these guys to come in here. Which, that is artist development. That's the name of the game. If me and you found an artist, we'd be doing the same thing for them, Man, I think we're probably getting on up there in time. Do you got anything else I want
to hit on something. I got some questions for you, man.
Hey, go for it, man.
So this is one question I like to ask musicians, artists, whatever. I like to ask, what is your Mount Rushmore of artists? Now I'm saying it doesn't have to be like, oh, my music sounds like this guy,
right,
or this guy directly inspired my music. But when it comes to your favorite artists, what's the top 4, the Mount Rushmore?
I would put, for sure, probably Merle Haggard as a songwriter. Ronnie Van Zant as a songwriter.
Okay.
That's my desert island band is Skinner. That's what I grew up on. And I know they get a bad rap being white trash bar band stuff. But they were 7 guys from the slums of Jacksonville, and they became one of the most influential rock and roll bands of all time. Anybody that you've ever heard do country rock after 1972 is directly doing their interpretation of what those guys done.
Yeah.
They created a sound. Man, and then it could just go on. I think Hank Williams is probably one of the first rock stars.
Okay.
He was doing things before anybody else was doing stuff like that. Number 4, I would probably put somebody like Doc Watson on there, man.
Oh, okay, cool.
Just to give it diversity and kind of cover my genre of what my group influences.
Yeah, that's awesome. I used to listen to Doc Watson all the time.
Doc's a huge inspiration of what he does. Like, he was a blind man from the holler in North Carolina, and they found him down there in the middle of nowhere, and they bought him a train ticket, and he went on his own in New York City to make a record. A blind man that never been out of the woods before, and that's inspiring for me.
Awesome.
But yeah, what about you?
Well, we have one of the same, and that's Merle Haggard. Okay. Merle Haggard, I'm a huge Merle Haggard fan. As far as the writing and everything, he's probably number 1 for me. But also on the list would be Elvis, and Elvis is more for the style and being Elvis. Obviously, he did all covers, obviously, but I loved Elvis. And then Waylon, of course, for the outlaw country thing.
The Waylon and the funk thing, it's not as far apart as people might think.
That's right. Well, yeah,
he was putting some thumping bass on his stuff. People were telling him that the needle was going to jump off the record. He couldn't do that.
Yeah, and there was a lot of funky country in the 70s. Willie Nelson did a lot. So think about this. You of course, the song Whiskey River. Well, by the second line of that song, you're like, wow, this song's funky,
Right.
Shotgun
Willie.
That's right. Shotgun Willie was another one. Same kind of feel. But I was watching an old YouTube video one time it was a few bass players sitting around talking about what is funky, what makes a song funky,
Right.
what makes a bass line funky. And they had one of the best explanation I've ever heard. And they just said, what makes it funky is when the listener just can't help but move, can't help but tap your foot, can't help but dance, that sort of thing. You know, can't help but make the stank face, you know, that sort of thing. That's what makes it funky.
Right.
So, you know, there's plenty of funky country songs that came out of the 70s like that, you know, and that's my desert island type of music. If I could only have one genre of music, it would definitely be 70s country is my favorite. So,
are you familiar with Paul Cauthen?
Oh yeah, for sure.
You've seen the recent, evidently he's calling it quits for a while.
Yeah, I saw he's taking a break.
Pushed it a little too hard for.
I saw that. He works hard and plays hard. Yeah,
I wonder what. I don't think nobody really knows, but it must have been something pretty dramatic.
Yeah,
because he's had some issues with some legal stuff. You know, possessions. This is nothing that's not out there already. And now he's having to go back home for a while. So it's a tough life, man.
Yeah, but I think, of course, it's better for him to do that than hurt himself, you know.
For sure.
But I love him, always have.
He's kind of funky.
Oh, yeah, super. A couple albums he had there. I think I've seen him every time he's come to Nashville over the past 6 years or so.
Right.
Yeah, I love him.
The new album, man, 2025, is coming out March 20th.
Yep, that's what we're calling it. You know what March 20th is?
No.
It's the first day of spring.
Okay.
That's why I chose it.
We're ready for it, too.
Yeah.
The album and the first day of spring.
That's right. Yeah, I don't like the cold. I don't like the winter. The springtime is always my favorite time of year when everything's...
Man lifts down in the wintertime.
Yeah,
fun, is it?
That's right. So everything comes to life in the springtime, you know, so I figured that'd be a good day to release the album.
All right, man.
Yep.
You got anything else? Anybody you want to shout out? Anything you want to promote?
Yeah,
other than the album?
just shout out to all the people who worked on the album. My two producers, Matt Butler and Paul Bowen. You can find them both online. And then, of course, all the many songwriters. Too many to. I'll have a list when I release the album, but too many to list. And the same with the musicians. Just so many great people worked on the album, and super proud of it.
Plug your socials. Where can
Oh
they
yeah,
find
so
you?
J Davenport Music. It's J.Davenport, the letter J, and that's pretty much everywhere. Yep.
The album's going to be on all the platforms.
It'll be on all the platforms.
Where you get it, they're going to be physical copies. Anybody they're looking for that thing?
Just vinyl, because that's my two extremes. I like digital and vinyl. I have a pretty good vinyl collection at home, and so we'll definitely have vinyl, but not immediately, probably.
Right.
Probably later this year, but it'll be immediately on digital platforms on March 20th, and then vinyl to come soon after.
Well, Jay, I'm going to do you like a doctor, man. I'm going to tell you to come back in about 6 months and check up with us.
All right, sounds
good meeting you, man. I'm glad you could come
you
out.
too.
I'm really glad we could do this. Guys, this will already be out by the time you see this, but me and Michael McGregor and 5-0 Media are going to be in downtown Nashville tonight on the scene at Honky Tonk Central, shooting some content. So if you see us out there, say hi. And if you do see us out there, maybe you can check on the YouTube channel for 5-0 Media or Live in the Lines and see what we've posted from our adventures. Until next time, man, it's good to see you, buddy.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
You
Thanks,
too. I
everybody.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Peace.